Welcome back everyone. In today's video we will do something different. Not only we're gonna use the 3D printing, I'm gonna use a little bit electronics and a little bit engineering, if you want to call it, to bring life in some old drones that I found and bought on my local swap meet or flea market, whatever you want to call it, bazaar. That some of them, usually they burn the engines and or lose the propellers, and they will just throw it, and someone will pick it up, go to the flea market, or they try to sell it. That's how it works here. So I bought few of them. Where I bought 2 of those mini, nothing special. There's no Wi-Fi or there's no camera on it, even though there is an option that you can solder on a camera. But basically I took everything from the inside and I put it in my Alien 1 prototype. Like I said, it has the internals of this drone, this small drone, which is, which is this one. It's just a simple drone, doesn't do much. There's no Wi-Fi and anything you can add, but there's nothing. But I put all the electronics inside, and this is in the I designed it in a way that you can, whatever the drone you're gonna get, as long as the board and the motors will fit, you can make it. Those motors are 7 millimeter diameter, but I make the holes on the chassis itself bigger to 7.5, if I'm not mistaken. And I use a little bit. You have screw holes. Or you can screw and clamp down the motors. But I use a piece of electric tape and snug them down there, and they fit, they don't move. Underneath I just make space for the board. I cut some slats for the board to sit. I had 2 identical drones, so I use one, and probably this will be another one. You got your cover. I'm using rubber bands for hair. You can use something else. So basically you lift it and you bring it out. Now I broke the rubber band, and that's okay. We can just change it. And basically here it is. How is this inside? Of course it has my logo. You have the battery terminal. You can pass it to the X2 or to the back here, but I wanted to make it clean. Of course the battery sits, and you got tabs that you use. This broke, but you use a rubber band for hair. You just cross it, something I will show you later. I just wanted to show you that it's not necessary to use a specific drone. You can use whatever board you want, just cut it, as long as the motors and everything fit. And of course this has a feature that you can add a camera, something I will show you right now. You can see how it goes together. You have and that's it. And it sits nice and flush. I've tasted it already. It flies very nice, but this is it. Like I said, this is a prototype. We're not talking about this one. Of course, after I printed and tested that one, I knew that there is some adjustment that need to be done. I made the holes here thicker. I made this part that the drone sits longer, and I made the camera mount a little bit thicker. Of course you need to use support, so underneath it's a little bit ugly, but it's okay. It's meant to be flown. In the file you will have, of course, the body. You will have the cover. You will have the cover that goes underneath. You will have the camera box and the camera cover. This drone is designed based on a Turismo drone that I found in my, as I said, my local flea market, bazaar, whatever you want to call it. So I took everything, which is this board here. The only thing, this one comes with a Wi-Fi module, and of course the camera. I took everything apart. I eliminated the gears. I make it directly that kind of type of a propeller. The reason I did it is I wanted something smaller, but with much more features, like a camera, like a Wi-Fi. So, and this board did not cut it. So like I said, I came with this small design. Basically the size is almost the same as the mini drones that I found. You can see almost identical. It's just this specific one will have a different features. Like I said, you can use a different board, you can use different motors or whatever. You just may need to modify a little bit here, maybe cut it or maybe do something. And you may need to drill the holes because they're pretty small 1mm holes. You may need to drill it for your screws. So let's put them together, I will show you how. And then we're gonna test live. As I said, since I took them from a flea market or let's call it a bazaar here in Greece, I know that this specific one, the two engines are broken, are not spinning well. So I'm gonna use the smaller one. I will take the 4 engines from it. I have another one here. I'm gonna take the 4 engines. I'm gonna swap it to this board. So this will be the first thing we're gonna do, to swap this and this motors to this board. So let's get going. Those motors do not go don't go well however you will put them. They have a specific place that they will go. For me, the easiest one is just to copy blue where the blue red goes or the black white goes. So let's unsolder, but I'm gonna mirror it from the, you can find it, it's not so difficult, but I have the other board, so this no need. There's no need to follow what this one says. I'm using just a cheap soldering iron. I need to get a new one. And that's the other thing is that I just not to mess it up, I will put the board in almost the same way as it was on the other drone to not mess up the gyro. So I'm gonna start putting the engines, the motors inside. Now that I know, I position the board and I know that the blue and red will go in here, so we're gonna put it too. There's a hole that you're gonna put the cables to. You can see the hole better from here. You can see there's a hole here. It will go until here. So let's do that first, and I will show. So you can see how did I pass it to. But I did not plan for it, but I want to add the LED lights that it had. So I'm gonna use this hole here, and I'm gonna glue the LED here. Just make a small slot here to pass the cables, so to have LED lights. Just because I want to prevent any vibration and I don't want to squeeze the motors too much, I'll just use a piece of electric tape like here. You can see, and put the motor in the place. The best way I found to put the motors in place, let's pass the cables first. We're gonna set the height later. You can see I added LED too. Just a slot with a file, so the cables will pass. Then you just tension the cables. And like I said, the height with the motors, we're gonna set it later when we put the. We can even do it now. We put the cover. As long as it clears the cover, we are okay. So we can bring them a little bit more down. Then you can cut the tape to make it look nice, and now we can add the 2 screws. You don't need to use 2 screws, you can just use one. This screw is I think 1mm. Just using the same screws that I took out from the other drones. Now that I have the screw, you can see it's not necessary to use 2 screws. You can use one, or if you have a longer engine, longer motor, or you want to put it farther in, you can use the second screw. But I have tried it without screws, just with a little bit piece of electric tape. It's fine, and it holds. This has fallen. I have thrown it, and it hasn't moved. So I'm gonna do all 4 and now that I'm done, you can see all of them. You can see the lights in the spots, the motors. It will be a compact, mini compact drone. Now we need to wire it up. You can see I have put the propellers, and you can see the board. You have to make sure that this board sits flat with the drone, because maybe it will mess up the gyro. I did not wanted to show you how I soldered all the cables to the board because it's boring, but basically this is it. Now I'm gonna add the cover, which sits like that, and I need to trim down the on-off button. Just tapping the holes for the screw before putting the cover, just like that. You don't need to use a tap, you can just use the screws, and it's plastic, and it'll make your own threads. Now let's put the cover, make sure that the cables are all under it. And that's how it looks. So I put it together, and after flying it, I realized that the drone that had this board in had this kind of setup. It had the motor with the gear and another gear spinning the propeller, a much bigger propeller than they are. So when I tried to test fly it, it would not lift. It would not lift. There was no enough power thrust to lift the whole drone. After swapping the blades, swapping the motors, I figured out that that's the problem, that it just doesn't have enough power to spin the small propellers to lift it up, because it works like this one. So basically it's much more bigger propeller, much more thrust with much more less spin. So I removed the board, I unsoldered the Wi-Fi from this one, and I put a board, the same board as this one, from one of the smaller drones, you can see. And the good thing with this board is that it gives you an option to add the Wi-Fi. You can see you have a ground, you have a Wi-Fi, the signal, and you have the power. And probably this will be for, you can add something else. So I swapped that board, and it flies without a problem. And I wanted to show you that it is not necessary that you have to go and find the same drone like this one and put this board in them. You can just use whatever, even a cheap drone that you can find for 10-15 euros in the shop. You can just pull out the board, or if you have an older drone that you want to swap the body and make it a little more maneuverable, you can just buy. The only thing you have to do, I designed it that you have those ears here, and you can cut those ears. You can see the part of the board here. You can cut it, and you can put the board wherever you want it. So it gives you the options. You can swap whatever the board you want, and then just protect it with this cover. Screw down the cover. You can see the board inside. I broke this one by mistake, but it's okay, because there's something else I wanted to point. These both drones are printed from a PLA. Those are 100% infill, but PLA. I have like I said, this fell down, and the only thing it broke me is this. It's a mount for the camera, but it's okay, because we can. This isn't much filament to print. I can print another one, but I recommend strongly to using 100% infill to make it solid. So even if how many times it will fall down, you will not have a problem it breaking. But like I said, you can customize it. You can cut whatever you need to fit it, to fit your board, like I have done here. This is only needed here on the corners. Do not cut the screw holes, but cut some. You can see I could have made a better job, but it's okay for a prototype. And now I'm gonna put the camera. The camera is pretty simple. When it comes to the camera box, you can use one of those small rubber bands around those two ears around to hold the cover, but I just super glue it because I'm not planning to. And I use a little bit of super glue, so if I ever need to get the camera out, I can just break the box. It's not a big deal. It's up to you how you're gonna put it. But basically this is how it looks. As I said, by mistake, when I drop it, I broke one of the adjustments here. I designed it in a way that you can adjust it whatever angle you prefer your camera to be, but you can see that there is a screw and it bolts on the back of the camera. You don't need to add the second screw for the adjustment, because it is tight, you can just tighten it down to have the angle that you want. I will just add it since I have it. And on the other drone, we're gonna cut it all. You can see how it looks. Like I said, this is not necessary to add at all. And it needs to be a small screw so you will not go through and hit the camera. But this is how it looks. And you can see here, I use my Dremel and cut the tab if you don't want to use the camera. Or if you just want to glue the camera in front. So that's how it is. And this is how it looks installed. With the ribbon cable, there's a place, like I said, you can cut it. I had to cut it because the cables were too short. Like I said, you can modify it however you want it. Measure the battery for you. So the battery will be, let's say 2 centimeter by 4 with a thickness of 8 millimeters. So that's the battery I will use. So after you completed the drone, let's put the battery and I will show you how it attaches. I usually like to put them opposite to each other so it has a nice snug fit. Even though it is a pretty snug fit, there's no need to hold it down or anything. But I'm gonna use this. Those are rubber bands for your hair. You have a ponytail or something. Here I'm gonna do this because again they have the tabs here. Cross. And add another one. Not necessary, but if you want, the option is there. There it is. And like I said, after you connect your battery, you can even put the cable underneath the rubber band. You just pull the cover backwards and match those tabs in front. Like that. Let me show you how we're gonna attach the bar. So this is how I do it. I pass it to here. This is not necessary, you can just use whatever you want. Okay. There is the 2 tabs in the back of the cover. And just attach them there. There is your cover attached. Something else, make sure that your blade don't touch the cover. You can see they have space. Otherwise, bring your motors up. You can, even if you want, you can use a Velcro to attach the battery, the cover on top of the battery. So let's go and fly. Now that you saw it flying, this is it. We're gonna call it Alien 1 as the cover says. For sure there is much more room for improvement, but okay, this is my first design, so let's go with it and we will see what else we can improve, what else we can learn from it. I'm planning to do a little bit bigger, the next version to be a little bit bigger, so we can use the gears with the motors to spin the propellers, not only the motors like this on this. It is small, it's very, I like it. You can make it lighter by using a different filament or by changing the infill or changing the walls, whatever you like to do. I believe it's not so difficult to pull. Like I said, you can use whatever the board you want, as long as it's a single, as it is a motor and not motor and a gear setup. And like I said, you don't need to use the camera as the other one, as I'm not using with the other one. You can just cut it off and use it as a non-Wi-Fi and non-camera drone. But basically this is it. So I hope you like it, I hope you enjoy flying it. If you have any suggestions or what to change or what to do, give me a comment down below. Share, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.